Mary Skelter finale is just around the corner, set to finish up Compile Heart's trilogy of horror and fairy tale inspired dungeon RPG franchise. In preparation, I decided to go back to its predecessor, a surprisingly beefy package that carries not one, but two RPGs. Complete with an unlockable remake of the original PS Vita title, here is my review of Mary Skelter 2 for the Nintendo Switch. Before really diving into the story, it is worth noting that the stories of both Mary Skelter Nightmares, the original game, and Mary Skelter 2 will be built into Finale as readable visual novels to get newcomers caught up on the series. But considering this will not be voiced in English or Japanese, that might be some info to sway you whether to play both of the games through this or just read them from within Finale. With the premise, Mary Skelter takes place in a horror-filled world. Most people are trapped in an underground living prison known as the Jail. The plot is centered around Jack and Alice, two people rescued from a torture chamber by powerful girls known as Blood Maidens. Once they realize that Alice is a Blood Maiden herself, the two travel with them to save others and escape from the jail. Mary Skelter 2 is a bit different. As a sort of alternate timeline thing, new Blood Maidens Atsu and Little Mermaid join the team sent to rescue Jack and Alice. The rescue ends up botched, leading to not only the Blood Maiden's base being destroyed, but a lot of characters from Nightmares either missing or dead. This derails their initial quest to escape into trying to find their missing allies. Both of these games are well written and have great emotional moments. 2 especially does the character arcs for some of the Blood Maidens in better ways than the first does. But it is also confusing. The sequel is an alternate story, but also has connections to the remake of Nightmares that leads into Finale. The proper play order is supposed to be 2, the Nightmares remake, and then Finale. But at the same time, 2 doesn't explain a lot about the world like Nightmares does. It expects you to already know a lot about it. Because of that, many people in the fandom have a different release order of playing the remake up until the new content, going into Mary Skelter 2, go back to the remake's post-game, and then onto Finale. This does work better, but the remake has to be unlocked to be playable, either by finishing 2 or via DLC. When it comes to gameplay, this is a collection of 3D dungeon RPGs. From the title menu, you can freely swap between the remake of Mary Skelter Nightmares that originally released on the PlayStation Vita and Mary Skelter 2. As far as game progression, both of these games play the same way. These are dungeon RPGs, so you have a base of operations where you can do side missions, upgrade weapons and armor, talk to the various party members or give them gifts for affection and special events, and stock up on supplies before trekking out into the dungeons. It is also worth noting that, being uncensored, we also have Mary Skelter's Purge minigame, enabling you to buff party members before dungeon trekking by doing a lewd rubbing minigame in the same vein as the Moero series. With the type of RPG this is, every dungeon is a grid-like maze you navigate in first person. You avoid traps, solve puzzles with character-specific abilities like Rapunzel's hair flare or Sleeping Beauty's rose arrow, and fight off enemies in turn-based combat. It is the pretty standard dungeon RPG formula, but with a Metroidvania-esque feel, with every dungeon being connected to the others. They all have exits that can be traveled to from the base, but finding new dungeons is a matter of getting to their entrances through others. Mary Skelter also features nightmare bosses that chase you around. You can attack and break parts off of them, but they regenerate, so in the end, you always have to run away from them. This is a system in both the first and second game, though 2 has a special feature where you can plant seeds in special areas of the dungeon to get extra item and equipment drops. Now let's talk combat. We have standard turn-based battles with using attacks, skills, and items to damage enemies, though Mary Skelter comes with blood corruption. Nearly everything in combat splatters blood everywhere. If enough blood gets on your characters, they go into a powered-up massacre state or go completely berserk in Blood Skelter. Your main character can manage and control the corruption of the maidens with blood abilities, essentially making you watch over and manage the mental state of your party. Mary Skelter 2 pushes this even further with the main character capable of losing their sanity when calming down corruption, adding that extra level of management with watching over the maidens as well as yourself. Considering this is a dungeon RPG, we should talk about difficulty. I would say the Mary Skelter series overall is pretty user-friendly. The normal difficulty has a lot of challenge to it, especially in the latter half of the two games, but we also have the option of using easy to not really be punished that much until you get to the late game, with the ability to create save points pretty much anywhere, the multi-floor auto move and fast auto battle systems. It is pretty easy to grind up your levels and create safe zones if you need to. Next up is content and length. Each of these RPGs is pretty beefy. The main task of each should take you around 30 hours. With the remake's new post-game and unlockable novel, you're gonna see a good 60 to 80 hours. Getting to presentation, the visuals look pretty nice, especially in docked mode. This is a 3D dungeon RPG, so everything is rendered in 3D instead of 2D. The models look pretty nice, though there is a fair amount of blurring going on in handheld mode. This is a lot more apparent in the Nightmares remake than it is in 2. And getting to performance, the frame rate is very good for the most part. There were a few segments in Mary Skelter 2's version of the Temple dungeon that had frames shake up a bit, but it plays very well overall. Now let's dive into battery life. Mary Skelter 2 gives the original model a range of over 2.5 to 3 hours. The Nintendo Switch Lite 3 to almost 4, and the Redbox or V2 2019 model a range of 5 to 7.5. In conclusion, Mary Skelter 2 is a huge package to get players prepared for the upcoming conclusion of the trilogy, including not only the second entry but a remake of the first. Now on the downside, the story's way of play order is unnecessarily confusing and there are some small drops in 2's Temple dungeon, but anyone wanting a ton of dungeon RPG to keep you busy will find a lot to love here. Reviews to go rates Mary Skelter 2 for the Nintendo Switch an 8 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.